I just came off a night shift and I'm feeling it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, well, don't worry. Luckily, Andy has enough energy for all three of us.
Wait, who?
Right?
Wait, the Andy? We
Well,
have Andy. We have Andy on our podcast.
Wait, I should have put a blanket on him first. Like, our guest.
Here he is. This is the We Are Human podcast, the podcast that dives deep into the lives of those who work in healthcare but do not let healthcare define them.
So every episode, we bring on a guest in healthcare to share their victories, their life, but also their struggles and their pitfalls, and most importantly, the ways that they stay human, both inside and outside of the hospital.
Because while medicine is a big part of what we do, it is not all of who we are. Let's get to it. Andy, just introduce yourself. Even though you don't need an introduction, we're just so pumped to have you here.
Okay, first off, thank you both. Tommy, it's so wonderful to see you again. It's been so long since we did our 73 questions, and I really do. I honestly just miss doing those 73 questions, which kind of brings me into my little introduction. Guys, I'm Andy. I am a current anesthesia resident physician up in the Northeast. And I went to medical school and graduated with Tyler here, one of the wonderful hosts of this podcast. And big thing for me is if you have seen like a 73 question interview with a blank physician on YouTube, I am the guy behind the camera of that. I came into medical school with about over a decade of professional photography, videography experience, both freelancing as well as working formally with different organizations. And then coming into medical school, figured out a way to blend my experience in media with medicine in my art medium of choice, which happened to be behind the camera. And that resulted in a YouTube channel that has now grown to over 170,000 subscribers, Instagram, TikTok, and then a lot of things on each of those platforms, but really honing in on the documentary interview and kind of alluding a little bit more towards my like portrait photography background too, where all of it's focusing on, which I love, it fits the mission of your podcast, highlighting people, highlighting the amazing people they are and the full story, not just of like a career defining them. And we could talk about this a little bit more too, but Tommy, your interview through the 73 question series on my channel, which is how the channel got really big, the whole mission behind that was, how can I take viewers into sometimes the homes of these physicians and these people that society puts on a big social pedestal, just like celebrities, go, hey, they're a real person too. They have lives outside of the hospital. Get to know them, not just as the career that they have, but the people they are, the personality that they bring to the field, to their patients. And it's been such a wonderful joy to do that for, I can't believe I'm saying it, like it's been 5 years, I think, like that I've been doing this.
It's been a long time. I mean, I can't believe I didn't even know you had hit 170K. Yeah, I was like, I think I remember when you were like at 107D, like, or it was something like that low. Yeah. Like when we had met. And your name, I mean, we've done a couple episodes already, and I feel like your name's come up a few times because a lot of the guests that we've met, certainly how I got involved in a lot of this part of medical media was all through us working together and then doing like essentially like the written version of what this podcast is now with your blog and the infamous push-up contest to have a sequel eventually. We can thank Andy for my defeat in that regard.
I was behind the camera for that for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, and I'm training every day. I'm ready for this rematch. Let's
okay.
do it
Quick aside. I was talking to Andy about this last night, and I thought of a way of beating you in this push-up contest. I mapped it out for our repeat. He's looking at me like, oh yeah, sure, that's false, but go ahead. Yeah. No, I think I've got a plan. And if you allow me right here on this podcast to pick the time, date, and moment of my choosing for the repeat, I think I'll still lose, but I think it's gonna be close.
Okay, as long as I could actually attend this, I am completely down. And I know it's probably going to be after one of my races or something, but I am still down. It could be after a marathon. It could be after my secret event that I have coming up. I am ready whenever, wherever you'll want to throw
I still
down.
have my money on Tommy.
I'm so cooked. He read me like a book. I said to Andy last night, I was like, I have an idea to beat him. What I'm going to do is right after a marathon, I'm going to go get like breakfast with him after to congratulate him while he's like mid mouthfuls of a huge breakfast and carb loading and everything. I'm going to, in the middle of a public setting, be like, drop down, let's go. And so maybe you'll cramp and like slow down, or like that's my only hope of beating you.
Just to give you some tips, I would say make sure it's before I eat, because like after you run a marathon, you're pretty toast. But if you let me eat a burger, I'm ready to rock and roll, and I am like I'll just be so fired up. I'll knock out 100 push-ups, you know.
And so giving me tips on how to beat him, and he's still gonna beat you.
Oh man! But
anyway,
enough about me and how I'm going to destroy Tyler in a push-up contest. So Andy, you've obviously grown a very successful YouTube channel, and you're now a resident. Knowing that you are not just a resident physician and that is part of your life, being an intern year, it could definitely make it feel like residency is your entire life. So how do you feel like as you're navigating this with your passions that you have and you've been so successful with outside of medicine, how are you navigating this during intern year? And have you felt the stress and toll of it taking away from some of your passions outside of medicine?
Oh man. I mean, this is
yes.
Yes. And like anybody who is following the channel for a little bit, like they will have noticed the uploads have slowed down, and that's like within different periods of like my training. Before we started rolling, I said I just came off of like a 6-month stretch of just being beaten to the ground, where it was nothing but medicine, crit care, surgery, back to back to back, rinse and repeat for 6 months straight. And like that has its own physical, mental, and emotional toll on it. And so, and also with that, like you have formal responsibilities as a resident physician. You can't like travel and do the things that I like really love to do with my channel. I couldn't do that anymore. And so I knew this coming in, and thankfully my program, I was very open when applying to residencies about the platform that I have, the skill set that I bring, and also I wanted to make sure that there is an educational opportunity and informative opportunity with that. But I think it's also because as an anesthesia intern, and I think anybody watching this, there are a few specific specialties that their intern year is kind of just like a conglomerate of you not really being a part of your program. Some people call it a transitional year. Some people call it a prelim year, depending on how it is. But that's radiology, ophthalmology, dermatology, anesthesia, and then PM&R, physiatry. Yeah. All of those, you spend your first year of residency basically just rotating through all the different departments. So like I was never home per se. Yeah. I was always with the internal medicine department, surgery department, emergency medicine department, et cetera, et cetera. And I think a big barrier, at least constraint creatively for me, was knowing that, hey, my program interviewed me and took me for everything that I was, as both the physician and also a creative, but the internal medicine department didn't do that. The surgery department didn't do that. The emergency medicine department didn't do that. And so out of respect for those departments, who like at least temporarily were kind of my bosses, I had to scale back a little bit. And especially being in anesthesia, these are your colleagues. You are going to interact with they are going to be calling you for airways and emergencies for the rest of your time in residency. So these are bridges that like you cannot right. burn. And so with that, I think a lot of my videos had to shift from like showing and a lot more of reflection on my story and the lessons that I learned and some of the, I think, human parts of medicine that nobody really talks about, whether that be like really deep, patient encounters that will absolutely change the way that I view patients and treat people, or like the pure mental exhaustion that is being an intern resident. Like those are things that I'm discussing a lot more now on my channel. And it evolves with time. I think in all art, it's a reflection of your life at that moment. And so the early days of my channel, it was a reflection of me exploring different specialties, me wanting to showcase for the undifferentiated student what could be, or what are the options out there. And so that was what I made. But now it's like I am differentiated. I know what I want to do. I have my specific interests. And so me continuing to do a series that was like very, very broad in exploring the different specialties didn't make sense to me. And that's where you always have this divide as a creative of like, do you make things that you like and are reflective of your life? Or do you pump out stuff in an effort to appease the audience that you've amassed? And I think more so now as an intern, where you have less ability to, I think, like finally curate things. You just kind of like put things out when you can, when you have the energy. Like those two fight each other all the time. And that has been the biggest. I've talked to Tyler. I don't know how many times like we've called over the past year discussing that really difficult divide between making what you like and what people want to see.
I feel like at least once a month. And it's not always like you to me. I feel that too as an intern. This year was really when I started making a lot of like comedy, medical skits. And while that's probably what I'm known more for, as a part of my fiction writing being aside, I sometimes struggle with like, how much am I leaning into the time the limited time that we do have for medicine and residency. My outlet, everything that I love outside of medicine really does come to the nit and gritty of writing and fiction writing. And so if I were to only do that and not do the stuff that like shows people who I am and brings them into my writing, then people wouldn't even know what my writing was. So there is that trade-off too. And yeah, in medical school for sure. I mean, there was a time when we were thinking, oh my gosh, there's no way life can get busier than this. And then the next year would happen and go, well, it definitely can't get busier than this. And then fourth year comes and goes, it can absolutely get busier.
Yes, exactly.
Fourth year. But then here we are in intern year. I hear you. I certainly struggle with that too. I think the important thing that you are doing is, one, you're asking yourself those questions. I think it can be really easy for anyone to just let that part of them stay quiet, be like, well, I'm just going to make whatever does well. I'm not going to think about what I want. I'm not even going to, and that's how, not just in their creative hobbies, but in medicine too, I feel like it's a really easy way for people to get jaded 10 years down the line. Tommy, I mean, you're the one here. We're interns here. You're the one who's gotten through it all and are still doing your hobbies. I mean, when you were an intern, how often did you feel like the stress between now I'm outside of the hospital, here's all the things I want to do with my life. How do I start building this life outside of medicine?
Yeah, for sure. Like that's such a great question. But really quickly, I want to touch on what Andy was saying about like the pull of like making content that I enjoy and that fulfills me, but also the pull of, well, I want to make content that appeases the people that are watching. And so what I would kind of encourage you guys about is that, the likes and the views and the comments and the virality will never fulfill you, right? Like it'll never be enough. Like it doesn't matter how many you get, that will never be enough. And so the basis should always be that I'm going to make content that fulfills me and that makes me happy. but at the same time, I'm going to make that content in a way that can make a difference to the viewers. And whether views come or they do not come, I'm going to be okay with that, because I know that if it helps one person, that it's worth it. And if I'm being authentically true to myself and it's fulfilling me, and I'm making content about what I'm passionate about, it'll eventually reach the right audience and will get views. Now, when I say that, I'm not saying that you shouldn't try to do better, try to make, improve on things, but I'm just saying do content that lights your heart on fire, because that's going to be attractive to everybody who sees it, and it's going to be beneficial to them as well. So just a little pearl that I have kept with me throughout the years of social media. But then in terms of residency, as you guys said, it was absolutely insane. I'd say my thought process on it is probably a lot different than what a lot of attendings would tell you. Because a lot of people are saying, you're a doctor, you need to only be a doctor, you only do residency once, work those 80 hours a week, don't do anything else. When you're out of the hospital, all you need to do is study. But I truly did not believe that. And I wanted to show that you could be an incredible physician and you could also keep extremely well. And so what I decided to do my intern year was sign up for a full distance Ironman during intern year of residency. And I had never swam.
That does not surprise me at all.
Yeah, and so I had never swam and I had never biked before.
Okay. Well, sorry, this is your first ever one.
Yeah, and
what made you do that? I'm curious.
Yes. So I wanted to show that you could, again, be a great physician and also do things outside of medicine that you love and chase your goals, even if they're outside of medicine. And so I signed up for a race in 16 weeks and was like, I'm going to do it. And so my intern year of residency, I trained and did an Ironman. And, it was hard and it was challenging, but I did that to show that it was possible and that you should do it, because I loved residency. I loved every second of it. And yeah, I worked extremely hard and I trained extremely hard. But why I think it's so essential that people in medicine do that and that they pursue their hobbies outside of medicine is because me doing that, those things outside of medicine, made me so fulfilled and made me so excited to go back to the hospital. So when I was at the hospital, I was 1000% involved in tune to what was going on at the hospital. I was wanting to be there. I was wanting to spend time with my patients. I was wanting to learn. I was absorbing it all. And then when I was out of the hospital, that side of me shut off. And now I'm 100% in tune to what is going to fulfill me and make me ready to go back to the hospital and do the same thing. And I think that when you keep your passions outside of medicine alive, it keeps your medicine or your passion for medicine alive and will make you the best doctor that you could be. And so I think you have to find that balance. And some days it may only be 10 minutes that you get to do it a day if you're working 100 hours a week, but still setting that 10 minutes aside, I think will help you be so much more fulfilled and make you a better doctor in the long run.
I couldn't agree more. And I feel like that is a lot of what our conversations allude to when we've called about certain things that you want to make or certain things that maybe you feel constricted to make. And to Tommy's point, if the limited time that you get outside the hospital, if that is filled with doing something that is not bringing you joy, even if it sounds like a lot of work, like an Ironman, but I would hope that Tommy wouldn't be doing an Ironman just because he hates himself and wants to suffer. If that's true, maybe we should have a separate talk. But yeah. That being said, there's a couple times I know we've talked about I don't know if I feel about this video or that. It's not making me feel the way something before. And it's not the most profound thing to say that life is short. And so making anything with the limited time that we have outside of the hospital that doesn't bring you 100% joy, time to cut the cord, right?
Yeah, I have a question for both of you. And I'm just truthfully just curious about this. Have you guys ever felt in either medical school or during intern year right now that medicine was pulling so much of you away from your hobbies outside of medicine that you thought medicine wasn't worth it, that you're you know what? This isn't worth it. I do not want to do medicine anymore. Because I think, especially on social media, we see a lot of people leaving medicine. And a lot of times it's because they're pursuing the things that they enjoy outside of medicine. So have you guys ever felt that way? And if so, how do you combat that and get back to, you know what? No, I want to be a doctor.
I think I might have a different answer than you.
Yeah.
So I actually made a full YouTube video about this, on why doctors are leaving medicine in light of, especially recently this fall, you saw all over whatever like social media platform it was, people were just dropping like flies.
Yeah.
And I think 100% I've had many many people come to me and be like, why are you still in medicine? Just quit and do YouTube full time. But I think for me, I was also like on the freelance side before this all, and it's just as bad. It's actually worse because it's only eat what you kill. And that is a stressful way to live. It's fully dependent. Like we right now have the liberty of saying if all of this goes up in flames, like social media, whatever, like one day we go, we're not going to post a single thing anymore. Guess what? Still a doctor. We still have patients to care for, and we're doing something that we love. And that is a luxury that many people who do social media and media work in general full time do not have. Mm-hmm. And so, like, for me, knowing that the grass really isn't greener on the other side, I was like, I know for a fact I didn't come to medical school to become a YouTuber.
Yeah.
I came to medical school because I want to be a doctor, and that's my personal decision. That's my mission. And also, I think having the context of fighting for freelance gigs and everything beforehand gave me the confidence to say, like, quitting is not a better option when I think everybody else who only sees the results do view that as the better option. And so every time like that thought crosses my mind, I'm fully reminded of like living gig to gig, and no, I'm good.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And I think mine's pretty similar to yours, but I think that the difference being I did have the experience during med school where medicine was taken away from me. And so with my medical leave, and I know we've talked about this, it happened to be the same time that the writing got bigger. And I was on the book tour. I had a lot of comments that were like, oh, now you don't have to go back. It was kind of like a lot of sighs of relief. Like, oh my gosh, medical school is so grueling. Like being a doctor is so hard. And like, now you don't have to do it. And I say that I've always like joked. I say I have to be a doctor, but it's not like anyone forcing on me besides like God in my heart. Like I have to be it because it's what I feel called to do, if that makes sense, like I don't feel pressure like anyone's forcing me to do this other than my heart and God giving me the gift to pursue this. So I always found it odd. Also at that time too, it was like right before starting fourth year. So I was like, guys, at least let me finish it out before we like we're almost there, right? At least have the degree, actually. But like that, I would joke at them with that at least. Yeah. But no, I was petrified throughout my medical leave, and as fun as the book tour was, I just missed being with patients and speaking with patients, and the thought of not having that as an element in my life long term, I that just wouldn't be a life that would be very meaningful to me. And that's also on that tour when I was getting some of the readers' comments of the things that really, truly shocked me that kids would say in a very public setting. That also was what reinvigorated the idea of combining these in a new way, combining writing and medicine to the people that say you can't do both. It's not really an avenue. Like it's not really a thing until it becomes one. And then when it's a thing, then maybe people who feel similarly will hope to do it as well. And we've always said a lot that medicine can only heal so far. And truly, I think all of us can agree that like art, passion, and love is where we can heal those areas that medicine just falls a little short.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I've had like similar feelings, I think, with social media. Like, truthfully, I do well enough on social media that I do not have to be a physician. And so I get asked all the time, like, why are you still a doctor? Like, you can get out. Like, it could be over. Like, you don't have to keep doing this. And to me, it's just like, you're right. Like, I do not have to. But like, what an honor and privilege it is to be a physician. Like I still think it is just such an incredible career. And I think too often we get caught up in the negative things in medicine. And we see the highlights of the other things outside of medicine that we enjoy to do. And so it's like this big contrast. And then we forget about the incredible moments in medicine that make it so worth it. And so for me, I think it's just a constant reminder of those impactful patient encounters at the bedside. That's like, man, I couldn't imagine not doing this. Like, I don't care how well any of my other hobbies do financially or anything. Like, I get the opportunity to be a doctor, and what an incredible job it is to be a doctor.
Yeah. And to your point too, and I don't want to go too deep into this because this could be a whole other episode in itself. The idea of the grass always being greener is it's been interesting to me to think about the rates at which people start medical school without previous job experience. There's a lot of pressure. I think medical schools are becoming more cognizant of the importance of gap years and experience like prior to entering the medical field. Both because it's just become like that crazy competitive to get in, but also they recognize that it's insane. Yeah. I don't believe, like, if I had my exact same resume scores and everything applying like right out of college, I don't know if I would get in the way that I got in before, just with how much like the rates at which they are accepting people now declining. But to that being said, there is something to say about when you are on that path that is so regimented from being so young, there maybe is a little bit of that fear of the unknown and that forcefulness of like, oh, I do feel I have to do this because I don't know anything other than this. And looking back at it, I don't ever want to undermine people's experiences in med school and residency and beyond, because this truly, it is a privilege to do this job. It is also one of the most difficult jobs you could ever do. And, but sometimes when, you are speaking to your colleagues and your residents and you're complaining about certain things, like, and this is why medicine is awful. There's a lot of times where the things they're saying are not specific to medicine. It's just a job. It's a job. Yeah. And like, I have a lot of friends outside of medicine. I don't come from medicine too. I was just catching up with my friends. One's a lawyer, one works in finance. And I mean, both of them also worked 100 hours that week. They talked about like the struggles of the opportunities to get and climb. Like, yeah. So a lot of what I feel, if we can try to focus in on when we do complain about the difficulties of medicine, I think we could all be better off if we focus on extrapolating. This is what's really difficult about the job market right now. This is what's really difficult about just sustaining a job that has crazy hours, versus this is what's so difficult for what we have to witness every day. This is what's so difficult with the tragedy and the just sometimes the horrors that you have to see, and then in a moment compartmentalize and go to the next room and not bring that with you to someone who doesn't deserve it. That's truly what makes this job more difficult. But I bring that all up to say is because you specifically, I know, have a really unique, interesting path getting to med school that a lot of people don't have. That
because you were talking about like people coming into medicine without any previous job experience or anything. I was part of a combined 7-year BSMD track. So I was like conditionally accepted into medical school straight out of high school, went through undergrad in 3 years, and then based off of MCAT, interview, like GPA, everything, you get fast tracked into medical school straight from there.
So pretty much you're a genius. I mean, you're just brilliant.
And I mean, that's what you're saying. That is far beyond the truth. I think,
what does Andy not do? Like he has this insane YouTube channel. He's a genius. Like, goodness. And making us look bad over here.
Sleep. That's what I don't have.
Retweet. I think that is the common theme of this podcast.
Yes. That I could definitely use more of, which is hilarious coming from an anesthesia resident. Anyways.
I think I'm just delirious because I didn't get any sleep, but I thought that was like the funniest thing ever.
I actually, part of the reason I brought Andy on, I've got a cup of propofol if you'd like some.
That is a lethal dose.
Oh, man.
All right, out of the ORs, put the propofol away. But genuinely, it was one of, and I plan on making a full podcast episode of my own, talking about the unique experience of being part of these programs, because the program I went through is not a unique setup. There are programs similar to it all across the country that deliver their own experience based on their requirements and everything. But at the end of the day, it is asking a 17-year-old to make a decision that they want to be a doctor without any, at least extensive experience, not only in the workplace, but in healthcare. So like, unless you have a family member, either direct or extended, that is in medicine to relay some of those experiences to you, you're coming in blind.
Yeah.
You are experiencing everything for the first time. And I think it takes a lot of intentional emotional maturity. And what I mean by intentional is like, you have to strive to achieve that emotional maturity in order to get through it, because these programs allow a certain level of passiveness to be there, where like it is entirely plausible that you can just like sit back, get your MCAT score, get your GPA,
Right.
do your bare minimum clinic hours, and then just cruise into medical school. Where like, again, I'll elaborate this on my podcast. I don't know when this is going to be out. If my podcast is up by that time, I'm gonna link that below.
Nice plug.
But like, I think that is such an incredible opportunity that sits for those students, that they alone get the decision of, do I want to make myself more than medicine or not?
Yeah.
And you have to make the decision to be more during that time, or else you are going to be in for just a horrifically rude awakening once medical school hits around, because now you are no longer protected within this little special bubble.
Sure.
You are just a medical student, and you are seated next to the PhD, the former flight medic, and then like somebody who went through 4 years and then took 2 gap years doing research in a lab.
Many people who have fully developed frontal brains.
Yes. Right. No, like genuinely. Yeah. I started medical school before I could legally drink.
Yeah, that's
like,
wild.
and so like, you have to be intentional about keeping those parts of your life there.
Yeah.
And then pulling as much experience as you can from those little moments, because in the same right, you only have 3 years to like even attempt to get some sort of baseline to your peers of, I mean, lack of a better word, life.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that would be so challenging. I mean, so truthfully, if I would have known about those programs, I probably would have done it. So I did undergrad in 3 years and went straight to medical school, just because I was like, extremely driven. I was like, I want to be a doctor as soon as I possibly can. And so I could see how those programs can be very difficult, and especially like having a 17-year-old or 18-year-old decide the rest of their life plan at that moment would be challenging. But something you said there, being more than medicine, and I kind of love that phrase. And you're an anesthesia resident right now, but I'm curious, what are your this is deep, really deep question, but what are your goals in medicine? But then what are your life goals outside of medicine? Like, what is your more than medicine? Like, what is Andy's version of more than medicine?
I love that. I think I'm gonna answer like my medical side first, because I think many people who follow the channel probably don't know, but a lot of my close friends do, that I was actually applying for orthopedic surgery all the way up until like 2 months before ERAS was submitted. I had 3 aways lined up all around the country. I withdrew all of them before I went on a single one. I did my sub-I in orthopedic surgery. I spent probably like a good chunk of my 4th year doing just orthopedics.
Wow.
And that has had its own separate impact on my mental, physical, and emotional health, to the point where I said, like, if this is what I have to do for the next 5 years, I don't know if I'm going to make it to the end of those 5 years. And I had to make a decision of like, do I like make a switch for longevity of my medical career and my own sake, that I could be present for myself and those around me? And so I still had a lot of connections. I was waffling between orthopedics and like anesthesia for a good chunk of medical school. I was going to pursue pediatrics in either.
We love that.
Actually, I was coming into medical school, I wanted to do PEM, pediatric emergency medicine, but that's a whole different topic. But I switched into anesthesia, and I ended up doing a away rotation at Texas Children's in just pediatric anesthesia, basically to be like, can I still do this? Like, I haven't done anesthesia dedicated in like 9 months.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, it was the happiest month of practicing medicine I've ever had.
You
That's
looked
amazing.
I mean, when you have a friend or a loved one that is going through a tough time, you want to be supportive. And there's also times where you want to be like, if you would just like listen to what I'm saying right now, if you would just let me control your life, I promise you'd be happier. I feel like we've all been there sometimes, but also I know you are your own person and have autonomy. But like I remember there were so many moments in that period where I know you were struggling with that decision, and it's just the light that was in Andy was absent when you were talking about certain things with orthopedics. And then when you would talk about anesthesia, and especially when you got back from Texas Children's, we're talking about that, I was like, this is different. This is now the Andy from before that I recognize that. Cause and it can be tough. I know when you like are so sure, or at least you've dedicated yourself to like, well, this is what it's going to be, and the unknown, the future is unknown. But I was super proud of you for taking the introspection to say, you know, life is going to be what it's going to be. I think this is going to make me happier. I know this thing isn't making me happy. And let me like listen to God. Let me listen to my heart and say, put trust in what is bringing me joy right now. And that's a tough thing that you had to do.
Right. And I think
I couldn't imagine. I mean, that's insane that you had the strength to do that. And it is incredible that you did that, especially as late as you did it. That's like unheard of.
Think about how many people are in specialties 20 years, 30 years in that, I mean, maybe if they had done something similar to you, would be maybe a little bit less jaded, a little happier,
or a different life. Like a completely different life. Yeah. And you guys did something that I think is so powerful, and that is, I truly believe that oftentimes the people around us could likely choose our specialty for us better than we can. And what I mean by that is like when really you could ask someone, when am I the most alive? When am I the most happy when I get home from a rotation? And whichever one that is, that's probably the specialty we should be doing.
Yeah. For the first 2.5 years of vet school, everyone told me that I was going to do pediatrics. And I think my response was, because I just like had never worked in that field, I was like, no, y'all are crazy. Just because I like volunteer doing music with kids and I write children's fiction and adult, and just because I like y'all don't know what you're talking about. And like kept going on, and it's like, what do you like about? Oh, I love this. Like I got back from peds and I was like, oh my god, I loved my day every day. But like that's not to say I should do this as my life. And then you start saying that out loud.
Like, wait, what? Yeah, actually, like, as you were saying that.
You're just such a stubborn person. And we're like, everybody, don't tell me what to do. And then you're like, okay, well, maybe all of you were right.
Yeah.
And like, I really do appreciate you guys like saying that, because like it's a hard decision. You saw me through it all, and like the ups and very much the downs too. But genuinely, my heart has been with pediatrics the whole time. And funny enough, you talked about like somebody can introduce a specialty to you. I didn't even have anesthesia on my radar until when I interviewed someone for my 73 questions, like one of the second or third episodes I did. She sat me down after the interview and went, "You would do amazing in anesthesia. Just off of the way you came in, you presented yourself, you made me feel comfortable within 10 to 15 minutes. You orchestrated this entire interview all so smoothly." I think that is extremely translatable to what we do in this field. What was that interview? The pediatric anesthesia person that I interviewed. So call it some sort of really, really crazy, ironic foreshadowing, which, by the way, the interview that went viral on my channel too is also, guess what, the anesthesia resident. And that was before I made my path, and off on the record, had no impact on my decision to choose anesthesia as well. But I'm chasing that feeling of being able to carry kids back into the OR, making the parents feel so comfortable knowing that like when we take your child behind those cold, dark doors of the OR with these mass strangers that are going to cut your little one open, that we are going to return your child safe and as pain-free as possible to you. And like that's something that I so enjoyed, and something that like I didn't have to force myself to do. And that's what a lot of people are scared of when thinking, oh, pediatrics, like you got to deal with the parents and everything. I just looked at it and said, I have no issue with that. It's a part of the job that I love and that I find I'm really good at. So that it fell very easily into my lap.
Yeah, so I have to share something with you, Andy, because when you were saying that, I literally got the chills. And the reason being is because when Oliver, our son, was going to go get anesthesia, we were all nervous just because we see a lot of the terrible things working in the hospital. And so like we were concerned. And the anesthesiologist, he was an older male. And if I had to guess, probably towards the end of his career. And he walked up to Phoebe and I, put his arms around us, and he was like, this is going to make me cry. I think I'm going to cry because I'm lack of sleep, not because of how emotional this is. But he put his arms around us and was like, you have nothing to worry about. I promise I'm going to take great care of your son. And he like held Oliver's hand, and Oliver was like going to sleep as he's putting the medication in. And he just picked Oliver up, and Oliver looked at him and smiled. And like, I've never felt more secure, more okay with the situation, more just like comforted by a provider than that anesthesiologist. And it was just like one of the most, just incredible moments in medicine that I've had on the other side of things, like as the scared parent, and then having this anesthesiologist come up and just literally just make us feel so at peace. And so like when you said that, I literally got chills all over me.
Yeah. So if you ask me what my medical career goals are,
that man.
I might be less sleep deprived, but can I just say I'm sleep deprived? That way I can excuse the crime.
That's my goal.
Andy, that's amazing. I love that. And then so the whole point of it, more than medicine, what about outside of medicine? What is it?
I think outside of medicine, with my platform, I want to continue to share, especially as a resident, digesting some of the moments of residency that nobody really talks about. I think a lot of my content has shifted over to vlogs. I don't know how much longer I'll do vlogs, but I think honestly, it's a lot of what I take inspiration from you from. It's like, how can I talk about and do things outside of medicine that I can showcase, that even if it's starting with, how do I prepare for my week as a resident, and then incorporate more of the like, how do I meal prep? How do I exercise? How do I ensure we get sleep? How do I balance all of this? That may not be as glamorous, but that is the transition that I want to be able to make, just because the ORs are a very sacred place that cameras are not allowed in very often. But eventually, especially once I start getting into the more pediatric years, there is a huge deficit of like, particularly pediatric anesthesia safety. There are organizations for like general adult anesthesia safety. But I mean, just as you as a concerned parent are wondering like, what do I need to do to prepare my child for this procedure? What's going to happen? What can I expect? Those are all things that I want to be able to incorporate into my platform more, obviously with the further training that I take, because I will be spending, as much time as I can, but still a limited amount of time in pediatric anesthesia until I go into fellowship. And so that's something that I very much look forward to exploring, so that even without being in person, I can still be able to give that like virtual hug to the parents of like, your child will be safe with whatever provider that is taking care of them. That's something one of my good friends, Max Feinstein, who is also a very large YouTuber who has now surpassed me in following, he just completed pediatric cardiac anesthesia up in New York City. So I have a lot of ideas to run by him, because I'm sure that's kind of where his mind is at as well, to see how can we bring that to the public, because I think there's not many people that that do it, and it's a very vulnerable population, and by population I mean not just the kids but also the parents that need to be cared for.
And then at some point in that massive timeline between medicine and the creative side, getting a puppy I know is pretty crucial.
Yeah, I do want a puppy.
Yeah. I don't know on the ranking of the three, I don't know where it comes, but I know it's definitely in the top three of
I think so too.
Yeah, I will say as a parent, getting a puppy is like getting a baby. And so I would put it a long ways down the line until and not saying that you shouldn't have kids in a young career. We did it, but it is a lot of challenging. And you already said you had no sleep. If you get a puppy, that sleep is really going to be non-existent.
We talked last episode, as much as I want children, but I want to find baby mama first. Maybe find puppy mama first, and then we get puppy from there.
I mean,
trademark that.
Can we trademark that? Yeah.
Trademark. We are even puppy mama. Merch coming soon.
Oh man. So Andy, we had asked, I think we've asked on episode, if not every episode, we've asked this quite a bit, and I'm just curious. And I think why I like this question is because it makes medical students feel seen. So the question is like, what is the most medical student thing that's ever happened to you? And so like one example would be like being lost on your first day or something like that. So do you have an experience where you were like, yep, this is definitely a medical student, or it could even be maybe an intern moment. Just something that makes you human and not a perfect medical student or perfect resident.
My first day of third year, like first clinical rotation, I started on gyn-onc, on OB. I showed up at 4:00 in the morning. I didn't know what pre-rounding meant. I like quickly tried to prepare, and like, of course, you're assigned like 2 patients or something. I like couldn't even finish the conversation with one because you just don't know how to time manage. I had no notes on the second patient, had like half a page of notes on the first. Attendant comes in. He lines us all up against the wall like a firing line of like pecking order too. It was like third year med student, PA student, intern, senior, and then like gyn-onc fellow, and just went present.
Like, how is that real life?
I cannot make this up. Like, this is my first day. I'm like, dude, what is happening?
This man woke up and was like, I'm gonna power trip this day.
Yeah. So did you have to change your pants afterwards, or?
I didn't have time because I went through that, like mumbled through, and then it was just like, so what is this person's chemo regimen? I'm like, I think they're on this. And then like, spat out some sort of alphabet soup, and they go, what was the previous 2? And I was like, oh, I didn't look at that far. He goes, gyn-onc history, you need to know every single medication that this person is on. It's like, I didn't know half of these medications exist, and this person has a 15-year gyn-onc history. But okay. So I go from, like getting drilled straight, walking over to clinic. Again, it's like my first time in clinic. I have no idea what questions to ask other than like, are there any side effects coming from your chemo? How are things doing? And then I go straight from there to the ORs. And I'm just like, the third year med student, like sitting in the corner. And then they're like, all right, what size sterile gloves are you? I'm like, I don't know. Like, what are the normal ones? Like 7? And it's like, sure, 7. And then the like circulator just goes like, hold out your fingers. And I'm like, huh? Puts lube on my fingers and goes, all right, you're placing the Foley. And I'm like, okay. And then so I place the Foley, and then God bless this attending. She looks at me and goes, all right, we're going to scrub. And then like, she obviously looks at me. This is like hour 12 of the day for me. Sees that I'm so overwhelmed and goes, have you scrubbed before? And I was like, only in simulation. And she just looks at me and goes, bless your soul, come with me. We'll scrub together. And like, afterwards it was fine. But like, I had like inpatient, clinic, and the OR experience all in one day. It was like literally a 13 and a half hour day as my
goodness.
first day as a third year. And I still will never forget it. Because I was just like, what did I get myself into?
Like, oh God, this is the next 2 years to life.
You survived. I have to say that has to be one of the hardest first days I've ever heard.
And you didn't want to do OB-GYN or gyne after that? Whoa.
So I did have an attending, right? Like I want him to be an OB because he was amazing with the parent. Because on my OB rotation at L&D, I was amazing because I was just like great with all the like new moms and everyone. Yeah. So I had one attending be like, we would love him to join our field, and I was like, oh, that's sweet. No, thank you.
I'm impressed. Like with all that stress, you were able to spit out a number for size of gloves. I think the first time someone asked me size of gloves, I was like, oh, a large, and the whole OR just like laughed. and I was like, should I have said like large and a half? Like, what are you talking about?
Oh my god!
So like, props to you for knowing they were numbered.
Okay, so my wife. Actually, I probably shouldn't share this story. Yeah, I'm not going to share this story. I shouldn't.
So we'll have her come on and she can share it.
No, yeah, I'm not. I should. I always hear this thing, or I saw this meme. Like when people get on a podcast, it's like they just forget like things that they shouldn't say. And so, like right as I was about to tell that story, that meme popped in my head. I'm like, okay, I shouldn't tell this story. But so the putting on gloves as a medical student is like the hardest thing in the world. Like you try to put these, they just go everywhere, and you look like an idiot. I feel like every
comes up,
right? Yeah, I feel like everybody has had that experience.
The firing squad is wild.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Any medical student out there, it too shall pass.
It too shall pass. Hey, Andy, didn't I teach you what pimping means? Did I tell you that during our interview?
Yes, you were the first one who like actually defined it.
So I'm gonna pimp you on what pimping means right now. What does that mean, pimping?
Oh
no!
Oh crap! Oh no!
No way!
That was perfect.
That is so funny.
Wait,
I'm the classic attending.
Oh man!
The second Tommy leaves, the second this podcast ends, Andy's gonna be like, "Oh, it was."
Yep.
Actually, we're gonna leave
eval, please.
Yeah, we're gonna leave that as a cliffhanger. I think I'm not even gonna tell the listeners what pimping is. We'll have to leave that, and Andy, you can tell us next time.
It stands for something. Each letter stands for something, and that's about all I got.
Your assignment before the next time you come on is to learn or remember what that was and learn how to properly put on gloves with sweaty hands.
Well, based off of Tommy's eval on me, the attending eval is really impactful. I don't know if I'm invited back on.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
Strong work, 3 out of 5.
Right. Oh my goodness. Well, Andy, we have loved having you on the show. It is such an honor to have you on here. We love what you do. We love the content that you put out there. And so before we end the show, if you had any advice to the people that are listening or watching, what advice would you have for them to stay human in medicine?
Honestly, one, if you start feeling jaded and you're in medicine, seek first the people, look at the patient, come back to them, step away from the textbooks, and then also find the kind of people that really fulfill your heart. For me, it was, I guess for all of us really here, it was pediatrics in some shape or form. And so whenever I have questioned why in the world am I doing this, go find the people that you are caring for, and at the end of the day you'll realize that this is bigger than the textbooks, and it's even bigger than you. To be more than medicine, surround yourself with people that also share the same mission and will pull you out of places where you are neglecting that part of your life. Tyler was very much that person for me through a lot of medical school. And in fact, the whole reason I know you and I know Paul, I know like half the people that you guys have probably seen as like a medical social media personality is because I said, you know what, if there are people doing the same thing as me, I want to shake their hand. I want to sit down and have a conversation with them and get to know their story, because every single person that I've met along this journey has added something into my life and has made me not just a better doctor, but a better person. And so find those people in your life, hold on to them dearly, and never lose contact with them.
I have
Couldn't
to
have said it
say,
any better.
yeah, I know. It's exactly
Yeah.
words out of my mouth. And we really, Andy, in a very fun, strange way, the way life works, like this podcast wouldn't even be a thing right now if it weren't for you. I wouldn't even have met Tommy and lost push-ups to him had it not been for our friendship too. So I'm always grateful for the time that we have together and appreciate you coming on. For this episode and for all other episodes like this, you can find it on the Hippocratic Collective. That's hippocratic-collective.com. Until next time, stay human. Andy, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, guys.
Love you, Andy. See you, man.
See you, Tommy.